I'm Billy, welcome to Billy's Backlog. Today we're taking a look at Super Mario RPG for the SNES. The OG Mario RPG, and a game that defined the childhoods of many a gamer. Unless you lived in Europe, in which case you literally never heard about the game as it never made it here. With one of its main stars, Geno, being a mainstay topic in the Super Smash Bros. Fanbase, it was only a matter of time before I took my dive into his only outing to see what the fuss was all about. But before we get started, however, I'm trying to get this new channel to 500 subscribers by the end of January, so if you want to help out, consider leaving a like, subscribing, and sharing this video with your friends. Back to the backlog. It's a genuine shame that Europe never received Super Mario RPG, because it was a game that set the precedent for all future Mario RPGs to follow, and from that perspective, it was fascinating getting to see the origin of so many systems and ideas that I was introduced to in series like Paper Mario or Mario and Luigi. But we couldn't complain, because back in 1996 when this title first released, we also got Super Mario 64, so we certainly weren't missing out that much. But does Super Mario RPG hold up? Let's dive right in and find out. Super Mario RPG has been in my backlog for a very long time. However, I was always hesitant to actually play it, and a large part of that was the 3D graphics. For the time, they were incredibly innovative and deserve to be respected for what they are, but there was always something about the look that just didn't gel with me on a completely personal level. The contrast between the pre-rendered environments and the 3D character models just seemed jarring in screenshots. But I can safely say that, for the most part, the graphics have held up remarkably well. With age, I've come to respect the look and style of Super Mario RPG, and I think the characters are all wonderfully modeled with so much detail and expression. Just the fact that we have different types of Toads is something to praise, given the current state of Mario RPGs, but also the different races that inhabit the world give the game a sense of scale that goes beyond traditional Mario formula. The Moleville Moles, the frogs at Tadpole Pond, the Nimbus people, the Shark Pirates. It's refreshing to see other creatures in the Mario universe. It very much reminds me of the Bean Bean Kingdom from Superstar Saga. The enemies as well follow a similar pattern. You have your classic Goombas, Koopa Troopers, Boos, and Piranha Plants, but then you have Shadows, Greepers, Frogogs, Balomes, Buzzers, and so much more. Some of these enemy designs are actually quite disturbing for a Mario game, like the Enigmas or the Reachers, and even the final boss has an element of nightmare fuel given the arena you fight him in when he hits Phase 2. It really highlights how much of a departure this game was from what we traditionally knew was Mario, while still keeping the feeling of Nintendo's classic IP within reach. I love how they took risks and really played around with the style of content, giving this entire game a unique feel. Character animations are, for the most part, clear and concise, with special mention going to the main party's special attacks, as well as the various in-game moments where Mario and his pals have to reenact moments from the story through pantomime charades. They were charming, and they got a chuckle out of me. The 3D environments were also really intriguing to explore, given this was considered groundbreaking at the time for a JRPG, and you can see how they took the formula for this world design and really improved upon it in games like Superstar Saga. Some of the highlights include the iconic Forest Maze, which is perhaps one of the most well-known locations from the game, both for its fantastic soundtrack and its whole aesthetic feeling like you got lost inside a fairy tale. The underwater ship is also fantastic, with a focus on tough ghost enemies and intriguing puzzle designs like the 3D maze or the cannon puzzles that ultimately gave you hints to a password for progression. But the best area in the game, bar none, for me, is Booster's Tower. It reminded me of the Trap House from Pokemon Gen 3, with tons of tricky obstacles and enemies to avoid, complemented by that jazzy theme that just sets the tone, with Booster constantly chiming in on your way up to remind you that he is a fantastic character. That being said, very rarely I would find areas like this, where it felt unfinished graphically. Just the fact that this square is floating off in the void caught me off guard, since areas in the game up to this point were typically boxed in and well constructed. Star Hill is another area I struggled with, which is a shame because it seems to be a fan favorite location. There just seem to be these invisible barriers preventing me from walking in certain areas, but the textures seem to imply I could walk there. It looked pretty, yes, but it needed way more clarity in what was and what wasn't impassable. There was room for improvement, and those improvements were ultimately made in future games. I do have to highlight as well that I wasn't a fan of the 3D platforming either. The controls felt too stiff to control Mario's direction freely, and I never had any certainty that I was landing safely during platforming puzzles. This was at its worst during the Bowser's Keep revisit, where you had to complete various action courses under a strict amount of attempts, and I couldn't get the hang of it, guys. There were also these minigame courses scattered throughout the world, and they were also a mixed bag. The Midas River Rapid was a lot of fun, with a simple control scheme and fair mechanics. I loved the barrel section. And the Skybridge attraction towards the end of the game, while being a platforming challenge, was strangely addictive, and was where I managed to collect most of my frog coins needed for special gear and items. But then you had sequences like Booster Hill, where you had to bounce on barrels and the Sniffets chasing you to make progress. But the hitboxes just didn't seem to line up with where I was jumping, causing me to constantly lose my progress. Which is a shame, because this was the minigame with the most potential. Then there was Yosta Isle and the Mushroom Derby. I tried so hard to get the timing right so I could beat Boshi, and even when I managed to beat the too cool for school Yoshi, it didn't feel like I'd earned my victory. I felt like I completely fluked into a win, and that wasn't a great feeling. But my least favorite minigame, I'm sorry to say, was Moleville Mountain. It didn't feel particularly fun to control, I flew off the rails more times than I care to admit, and I felt it went on too long for what it was. Perhaps these minigames were more appealing back in the day, especially to a younger audience, and I get why they exist, to break up the flow of the game, as this title is an entry-level RPG designed to be beginner-friendly. But for the most part, they just didn't jive with me, and that's okay. The main focus of an RPG, after all, is the battle system, and I think Super Mario RPG's battle system has aged very well. You can do a standard attack, use an item, use a special attack, or defend and run away, an option I never ended up using. While that sounds pretty basic, the system is complemented by its action command system. Certain attacks require you to hold down a button, or press a button multiple times to get the most out of them, such as Geno's beam attacks, Toadstool's bomb attacks, or Mario's super and ultra jumping attacks, which require precise button presses after each jump to keep the attack going. But even your standard attacks have a timed hit system, where if you press a button at the correct time during one of your attacks, you'll do extra damage. The same goes for magic attacks and healing spells. So, if you want Peach's therapy attack to heal you for more damage, press a button when your player turns blue during the spell and you'll recover more HP. Or with Geno Boost, press a button towards the end of the animation and the screen will flash, buffing your attack and your defense. Timed hits can also be used to block certain enemy attacks, halving or negating their damage entirely. You do this by hitting a button right as an attack is going to hit you. However, this system was a little more finicky, as sometimes it wasn't clear when you needed to hit a button during certain enemy animations, which led to a bit of confusion on my part early on. And even after beating the game, I still don't fully think I got this system to work how I wanted it to. Aside from that, battle flowed really nicely. Your party shares one special attack meter, known as your flowers, and when one character uses a special attack, it depletes your flowers, which you can replete by using syrup. It's like a shared bank account, with everyone withdrawing money with each attack, and this helps balance combat to some extent, as if everyone had their own individual flower meters, the game would break. It's a shame that outside of Geno Boost though, there wasn't much in the way of increasing your stats mid-battle beyond items. I suspect that was a purposeful choice by the developers to keep the game beginner-friendly, and honestly, that's okay, as I think this game is perfect for any new gamers who want to play a fun little JRPG. The story is very easy to follow, there's almost no grinding required if you want to beat the main game, and once you unlock all 5 party members, they all gain experience after each fight, even if they're not actively in battle. This keeps everyone on an even playing field and allows you to mix and match your party however you want. though I found a combination of Mario, Toadstool, and Geno to be the most effective. Geno's boost and crowd damaging abilities outweigh everyone else in the game, while Toadstool's 2 healing abilities are, and I don't mean this lightly, broken as heck. Group Hug defeats the purpose of even having mushrooms in your item box, it's that good of a healing spell. It's a testament to just how many max mushrooms I had laying around in my inventory when we hit the end game. I didn't need them. While all 5 characters certainly have their uses, I can't deny that Marlo gets outclassed very early on. Though if I had my way, I'd swap Mario out for Bowser, but Mario always has to be in the party, so that is what it is. Narrative-wise, I was left very much wanting more. Coming from future Mario RPGs back to this one, I could feel the step backwards, which is normal, given this was the first of its kind, but witty NPC writing can only get a game so far. The SNES was the same system that had games like Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger, while Super Mario RPG delivered a lot of plot points that were cliché, even for 1996. Marlo is perhaps the biggest victim of this, with his whole arc being a Moses retelling, just without any justification for why he was sent away from his kingdom in the first place. It's never explained and felt extremely lazy. At least Marlo shows a lot of personality in his overworld reactions, and of the main cast, feels the most active alongside Mario. Bowser also felt a little underwhelming. Yes, you see him countless times with his Koopa Troop early in the game, which is supposed to make your encounter with him at Booster's Tower feel a little more impactful because he's on his own, but it didn't quite do that for me. Especially since an area later, after you get Toadstool in your party, he literally becomes a non-factor in battles. Toadstool herself has a fun narrative arc, and I really like the moments where she decides to kick it into gear and take some names in battle, but then there are these moments where she ends up relying on Mario too much, or at the wedding chapel where she starts crying because her accessories got knocked off. I'd hoped that, given she was playable in this game, she wouldn't lean so far into the role of damsel in distress, and because of that she comes across as a bit bratty and very whiny. Geno is perhaps the only character I enjoyed, but even then, he really peters off after his appearance quest in Rosetown. You get the extremely epic Bowyer sequence where Geno appears, you help him defeat Bowyer, and he explains the plot of the game to you, but beyond that, he very rarely appears outside of battle. So when they start pulling the Geno will have to return to his world at the end of the game storyline, where Geno hides that outcome from the rest of the cast, it doesn't feel earned or warranted. I've seen that done way better in tons of other media. It's not like Geno's gone forever. Star Road is literally a place that exists in the Mario universe. Though to this game's credit, and playing devil's advocate towards myself, if the game was going for this Saturday morning cartoon vibe, they nailed it. With each questline being very self-contained and very focused on a specific area or event, I could see the plot of this game making a fantastic cartoon series for Mario. The Smithy Gang is perfect for that medium, and it would have allowed us to have more sequences involving the big bad beyond his appearance as the final boss. It's a shame they never tried that direction. I just wanted a bit more from the characters and the narrative in general, more interactions, more moments where they all got to chime in, more sequences of the full party getting to interact with each other. But I recognized that I was unlikely to get that from a Mario RPG game going in, and that's okay, it's not going to affect my review score all that much. I did enjoy that this game had a lot of secrets and extra goodies to discover too, and I know there are secrets that I didn't even see in my playthrough. Apparently there's a casino, there's a Goomba stomping minigame, there's armor sets I locked myself out of because I decided to sell this random seed, whoops. But I did accomplish one of my major goals when starting this game, taking down its optional boss, Kulex. This Final Fantasy-inspired super boss was a ton of fun, and while he wiped the floor with me my first time around, I rematched him at level 22 and my party was more than enough to handle his attacks. It was a long and hard-fought battle, but in the end I came out on top, besting the Dark Knight of Vanda and crossing a gaming achievement off my bucket list. When I finished the game, I was satisfied. I got what I wanted out of it, and while it didn't blow my mind at any points, I could see the groundwork being laid for future Mario RPGs, and while it doesn't overtake Superstar Saga as my favorite title in the Mario RPG series, it's certainly a good time. It also helps that this game's soundtrack was composed by the Yoko Shimomura of Kingdom Hearts fame, as the music was absolutely stellar from start to finish and managed to elevate a fairly standard JRPG into something pretty special. Super Mario RPG overall gets an 8 out of 10. It's a fantastic game for the time, but for me personally, I know that if I had the choice, I'd probably play other Mario RPGs first. Still, with its great personality, banging soundtrack, and beginner-friendly battle system, it's well worth playing through and has aged spectacularly. Thank you everyone for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Consider checking out my previous work. Last time on Billy's Backlog, I reviewed Outer Wilds, and the other day I went over some reasons why I think Kirby and the Forgotten Land is going to be a fantastic game, so check those videos out. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.